So this belonged to a neighbor of ours. It's the same kind of model as what we have. And he stripped it right down and cut a bunch of the bars and everything off and used it for organic farming. He was clipping weeds off in his organic crop just to take the flowers off before they went to seed. But when he took a bunch of the reinforcements off, it weakened the frame enough so it got a crack in it. So he's since switched to something else, and this was just in his off to the scrap pile, but it's got a whole bunch of parts on it that'll fit ours. So
how much did it cost, Glenn?
Well, it was a dozen eggs, and I think he was just happy to see it go. And you know, I can't blame him, but there's actually quite a bit of value in this piece of junk looking thing, and we'll try and strip it down and get a better idea of just, you know, what the value is here. And yeah, there'll be a bunch of piles. So something these swathers have on them that I've never thought about like this before is they have these gearboxes that takes the direction of travel of the input and changes the axis to 90 degrees of the input. Either way, I'm not sure what the gear ratio is, whether it's 1-to-1 or what inside there. Probably 1-to-1 inside the gearbox, and then whatever size you pull your sprockets you decide to put on the outside to make that work. But that's really cool. I've kind of had some plans in my head rolling around to make a windmill type deal, and I'm looking for something that would change the direction 90 degrees like that. Super simple, and that looks like it might be the ticket. Super duper cool. I got a couple of these now that I can use. Right on. Just buzzing the guards off with the impact wrench now. Leaving a couple on to support the knife till I get it pulled out. I think there's one about every 6 inches, so that would make 48 of them. So yeah, it's $7 a piece. Even if, you know, only a couple of them are good, it's still worth your time to pull these guys off. It's only going to take about 20 minutes with the impact wrench. But 90% of the guards are in pretty good shape, and I don't know, there's a half a dozen teeth that are really bad that'll have to be replaced. But the knife itself, like there's one that needs replaced, but the knife itself doesn't have a lot of wear on it. It's the old rivet style, which is a pain in the butt, but that's what all our guards are on our other stuff. So the odd one's been switched over to the screw-on type here, but anyway, we'll carry on. I just pulled the sway bar out. Getting ready to pull the knife. I got most of the sickle sections out of there. I have to get the sway bar out of the way. There's tapered bearings and races in this. This is the arm that goes back and forth that runs the cutting bar back and forth. And these take quite a bit of abuse. I've had to fix quite a few of them. The fatigue sets in, the back and forth action, and if your knife just isn't really sharp or you're cutting tough stuff, it's quite a bit of banging. Sometimes these holes get worn really out of round and you got to fix them up. Looks like there's been a new end welded on there already. These bearings are tapered roller bearings. There's one top and bottom that go on. Sometimes this shaft will break off. There's a plate on the bottom, and had to re-weld those a couple times. And these are just similar to wheel bearings, but probably specific to this application. There'll be part numbers on them, but they're in good shape, so that'll save me some looking. I'll just stick everything back together so I know where it belongs and keep the dirt out and put it in storage, because sooner or later I'll be digging into this stuff for sure. Yeah, it's put back together for storage. I got some wire on the knife here, so I got enough pieces pulled out of the way. I'm gonna try and jerk it out of there. See how that goes. I'm gonna need 2 hands here. That's how it comes out. Sorting through the consumable parts that I'm gonna be keeping. I'm not gonna keep any of these hold downs that are broken or bent or anything like that. That's pretty silly. You can see the back there is kind of worn right where the hold down comes against the plate with the bolt holes in it. So about 2/3 of them are worn out, but the other ones are okay. So I'm going to keep these ones, and those ones are going to go to the recycling. I'm going to go through my sickle sections here. I'm going to sort them into 3 different categories. I'm going to have my cracked or bent or otherwise garbage to go recycling, and then I'm going to look at them, and you look at this groove here and you can see there should be 2 parallel lines in there, and there's a small amount of wear right there by my finger. So I'll sort these into like new, slightly worn, and then recycling. Here's an example of one that's got a fair amount of wear in it that's going to the junk, compared to one down here that's just got a minor amount of wear that's still good for our purposes. So I got the good ones wired up in groups of 6. There's 28. I didn't have any, just one that was like new. The rest were moderately worn or garbage. This is my pile of going to the recycler, and 28 at, I don't know what these cost new, but they're probably, I'm thinking $8 to $10, probably more than that now. It's been a while since I bought any new, but well worth keeping them. A while since I bought them, but well worth keeping them, even at half that price. So I'm going to stop for lunch. Started yesterday and a little bit late today, so I've been out at 4 hours. I'll show you where we're at after about 4 hours. I just pulled this nice little gearbox off of here. I'm going to clean it up before I put it into storage because it's kind of a mess. And we got our knife, a little bit of, most of those are the drive shafts and bearings and the sway bar. And I'm going to leave everything pretty much assembled like that because you know where the parts are when you need them. It's been my experience is if you can't find something within 5 minutes when you need it, well, you're going to kick yourself and probably end up going to the store and buying new, or sure waste a lot of time looking. Anyways, this is my pile of good stuff that's going to go into storage that I've got so far. And still got, gonna strip down most of the moving parts off of this thing this afternoon till I have to quit. And I'd like to chop a lot of it down with the cutting torch, but we've just been so super hot and dry. I'm hoping we'll get a little bit of rain because I'm not gonna do any welding until things get wetter here, because that's just scary. If I have to, I can do some in the shed, but I'll have a water truck over here and water around everything, but that's That's only if it's absolutely necessary, and this is not absolutely necessary. I can pull this, after I get the moving parts off it, I can pull it out of the way until we get a nice wet day, and I can chop off any of the structural pieces and cut it down into bite-sized pieces to move out of the way. This is just a pile of my tin and scrap iron to go the scrap iron guy. And so far, this is the only pile of stuff I have to actually go to the dump. I've got a couple belts, and I got a container of mystery oil and some wire. Everything else so far is gonna have a home. Got a couple of pail of bolts. I got just general bolts off of the swather that are just mix and match bolts. I'll get them cleaned up and probably mark them and just put them aside for swather, because a lot of them are special for the swather. And then these are all the bolts that hold the guards. Thank you. I knew that word was on the tip of my tongue somewhere. These are the guard bolts, and they got a special head on them. You usually reuse these, but I'll clean them up and just put them in a box so that we have a bunch of them with the 9/16 heads on them. And I think those are 9/16. Maybe they're 1/2 inch. I don't know. Anyways, we'll get them cleaned up and put them away. Yeah, I'm probably going to get these hydraulic cylinders off and the rest of the moving parts that I can take off. And we'll go from there. So usually, in the drive in here, there's a couple of tapered roller bearings, and when they go, you have to pull this great big pulley off in order to replace them out the back. And you can see that even after you get the pulley off, there's still a flange that has to make it out past here. And just about all of these swathers have this torched out, because at some point somebody's had to replace those. And it's a real bear of a job getting it out. But I've got enough off of here that I think this whole box that this thing sits in will just pull off with the 4 bolts and these 2 on this pivot here. So I'm going to see if that's the deal. It'll sure save a lot of work, and I'll just leave this all together because it's a great big greasy mess in here when you take it apart. And I can just leave it together until I need it. That would be great. I always wondered what these big holes were for on the top, but I think they're for so you can hang on to the dang thing. It weighs about 75 pounds, but it just slides off, and it's kind of got a mouth on there, so it isn't going to fall on anything until you're ready to pull it off. And then this pivot likes to wear out in here. You either got to pull these 2 of these pulleys off in between here and the gearbox and pull the shaft out the back way, or if we pull that box off, those should just slide right out, and that'll be good. So I've been keeping track of my time, and it took me about 6.5 hours over the course of a couple days. I didn't work at it just straight, but it was 6.5 hours to strip it down, and this is what it looks like. It's ready to be cut up at some point. I'm going to keep the wheels on it so that I can move it around, and those hydraulic cylinders have got a lock on them keeping everything in place, so they can come off later. But we'll get this cut down with a torch on a cool rainy day. This is my pile that's going to go to the recyclers. I'll probably keep a couple of the flat straight pieces, big pieces of tin, but I think they're galvanized. They got some kind of coating on them, so they're pretty limited for usefulness for welding on. This is the pile of stuff that's got to go to the dump. Mystery oil and rotten hydraulic hose and belt, some wire. And this is all the stuff that I'm going to keep. I've kept everything pretty much assembled so that I can find anything that I need, because it'll be just right hooked on to whatever it needs to come off of. If you just have a loose pulley or bearing, then it's pretty easy to lose track of what the heck it's for. But when it's on something like that, you know exactly where it goes and can see if it's in better shape than the one you've got. So yeah, that's a fair bit of money's worth of parts if you had to buy them all new. Granted, we hopefully we don't use all of them. Even if we only use 15% of them, I think it'll be time well spent. We'll certainly use up all the guards and the miscellaneous bolts and any of these shafts. When the swather finally, we don't use it anymore, that round bar and a lot of the structural stuff here is good for other purposes. I like building stuff. So all told, I'm thinking going to get the swather and bringing it home and moving stuff around, and my last cutting up and, you know, boxing. I'm going to crate this stuff up and put it in the other shed so that I have it out of the way but handy. I'm thinking if I doubled my teardown time, I'm thinking, you know, 13 hours probably total for the project is my time I've got invested in this, and of course a dozen eggs is what I paid for it. So anyways, looks like it's going to be a nice morning. I'm going to pull this piece of junk out of the way and do something else.